Hello, 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 and welcome to another fantastic episode of Anarchy Among Friends Roundtable discussion. Before we get started, let me first remind you that we are covered by the BIPCOT No Government License, which allows for the use and reuse of this podcast by anyone and everyone except for governments and the bludgies thereof. You can learn more about that at bipcot.org. That is BIPCOT.org. We're also protected by Brandenburg v. Ohio, 1969, which ruled that the government cannot punish inflammatory speech unless that speech is, quote, directed to inciting or producing imminent lawless action and is likely to incite or produce such action. Therefore, everything said here on Anarchy Among Friends Roundtable discussion is entirely hypothetical.
Don't ban us, Twitter.
For the most part, ish. Something like that.
Yeah,
But,
I think my FBI handler is actually finally excited. He's like, finally, some fucking action from this guy. All right, let's see what you get.
if you don't know that voice, you probably don't because he doesn't do podcasts ever.
I have to be up at 4 a.m. tomorrow, so but I couldn't miss this one. With everything that happened the past week, I was like, fuck, I got to jump in.
It was so hard to find stories for this week. Like the post-election, post-New Year's, like there was just nothing happened. There wasn't really anything worth discussing.
It was such a slow news
news week. But,
I mean, I think I saw some good memes this week, but
I saw something about AOC shoes being stolen. And there's a Florida guy stole something from Pelosi. Is that not one of the most Florida man things?
That is so Florida, man.
Yeah.
Was that the guy with the podium?
That stole Pelosi's
lectern?
lectern?
Yes, the lectern. Yeah.
He's from Florida.
I don't doubt it whatsoever.
Yeah.
So for those that don't know that beautiful baldness, who are you?
I'm Chris.
What's your throw out your Twitter handle?
No, I deactivated. I'm not on any. I'm just going with the flow right now. I was kicked off of Facebook and Instagram, so we just.
He is a holder of the Big Zuck Award.
Yeah.
Kicked off Facebook and Instagram in the same day.
So yeah, so what happened was I was at the grocery stores the Thursday before the election. And I was in a line at the grocery store, and I'm checking my phone, and I saw a meme, and I was like, "Oh, this is great! That's going on Instagram." So I paid for my stuff, and I got home, and I pulled up Instagram, and then it logged me out. And that's when I messaged. I put it in the chat. I was like, "Oh shit!" I said, "I'm out of." I said, "I got kicked off of Instagram," and you were like, "Wait, hold on. What about your Facebook?" And I said, "I don't know." And you said, "Wait," and then you messaged back, and you said, "Yeah, dude, your Facebook is gone." It's like, yes. I told my mom that. I was like, hey, if you don't see anything from me, my account's got deactivated. She was like, did you publish some fake news? I'm just kidding, LOL. It's like, yeah, more than likely. So yeah, that's my story.
Yeah. So Chris is a homie. We go way back. Several years at this point.
Oh yeah, like 2015? 2014, I think, actually.
2015, something like that.
Damn.
It's been a while.
Time flies.
But what's your political views?
Okay. So I don't scare the people that I work with. I tell them I'm an extreme libertarian. But yeah, I mean, anarchist, free. Yeah, because it doesn't sound as scary as an anarchist. Because you say anarchist, and everyone thinks Antifa, and I'm like, no, I'm not a socialist. So, but yeah, free market anarchy. So.
Yeah. And you were on IG and Twitter and all that. You were American Rifleman Rifleman culture.
Rifleman culture for a little bit.
Culture.
Yeah. So that was that was when that was really when I transferred into the just fuck you guys phase. Fuck you. You must want kids to get killed. Yes. You just hate old people. Yes. Every negative stereotype you want to throw at me, and I will wear it with honor. So
I fucking despise old people and children.
A fellow member in the redacted files.
Yeah. Well, it reminds me of in old school when Blue's having the funeral and they're there and Luke Wilson is like, I feel like we're responsible for this, and he's like, Mitch, you can't blame yourself. Blue was old. That's what they do. Old people die, and the lady next to him. I'm sorry. Indeed.
So, yeah. So, I don't know. We should just start with, since we got rifleman culture here, let's just start with the gun story.
Yeah, bring it on.
Start with some gun bills, and then we can. Andrew's ready to start drinking already.
Oh my God. And when I saw these come out and like the list of them got put together, and so I was looking at them, I was like, man, I really wish that my computer was working so I could do an Anarchist Weapons Wednesday again and bring it back for this specifically, because holy fucking shit.
Well, this is just the pre-filed ones. Like, we know that an assault weapons ban is coming, and they've already talked about the blanket ban on body armor with no grandfather clause. That's been discussed. That'll be a fun one.
Yeah.
But,
how are you gonna enforce that? It's not even a registered thing. So like there's no serial numbers. Like, how are you gonna enforce who does and does not have body armor?
I can't wait. I can't wait for that bill to like actually come out, because I want to see Lyman's response. That his response is going to be fantastic.
Well, how do you even tell if a guy's just got a like, how do you know if he's got what are you going to do? Come up and knock on his chest? Is that going to be the litmus test for the body armor? Don't touch me. You're in my space, 6 feet. You're not wearing a mask. Get away from me.
You just stare at everyone that comes up to you and go.
Start randomly shooting people in the chest and arrest their survivors.
Hey, don't give them ideas. That's pretty much how government tends to work.
Yeah, you joked and we're laughing, but that's probably going to be the reality of it.
What's the Harry Brown quote about government is good at breaking your leg, handing you a crutch, and saying, "See, if it weren't for us, you wouldn't be able to walk."
Yep.
So, but I'm going to preface this by Biden has already named his AG. I don't know if you guys saw this or not. Merrick Garland. That name might ring a bell. He was nominated for the Supreme Court under Obama and got blocked by Republicans. Lindsey Graham and a few other Republicans have already said that they will support Merrick Garland being nominated appointed for the Attorney General. But Merrick Garland, when he was a circuit court judge in D.C., actually voted against Heller versus D.C. So that should tell you a whole lot.
Well, the fact that Biden even picked him should tell you a lot already. But
they're going after ghost guns. They're going after Cody. They're going after 3D printing, homemade, all that good stuff. So.
Yeah, oh my God. I mean, the moment that I saw it, he was the one who got the appointment. I'm like, okay, so that's how this is gonna be. Okay. See,
we might have to flip things for the schedule, because all right, we're flipping things. All right, we're gonna talk about the elephant in the room. We'll get to that, but like, with the gun control coming in, and Biden coming in, and all these people coming in, and like, what was it, like 21 million firearms were sold to first-time firearms owners or first-time owners last year?
Yeah.
Right? Oh, first off, the secondary market is going to be so lit with all these liberals turning in their guns and trying to sell them back. The unfired ARs at like 75% of store price. I'm excited. But
if they're lefties, they're buying AKs. Let's be honest. I shouldn't talk. I also have an AK, but
Why don't you want to buy my Bear Creek Armory? It's never been fired. I have a case of steel case for it.
And if you haven't seen what the secondary market for AKs looks like right now, oh my God, the pricing is absurd.
Yeah.
Like, not even super. Like, if it was an Arsenal, like, I understand an Arsenal AK going for an enormous amount of money. They're really well made. They're very nice. They're very high end. They're like $1,200 brand new. Okay, fine, whatever.
Yeah.
So I can get that. But I'm seeing like freaking Century Arms garbage going for like people are asking for like $800-900 and getting it.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen around 1,000 for them.
For a Century? Oh my God!
That's what I've seen here. That's my local, like, and these we're talking like California compliant ones here, right? With the little bird cage on the mag release and featureless, fucking $1,100. $500 for a case of like 122 grain.
Ooh.
Which in California you have to do a background check for to get ammo. That nice little tidbit.
Man, I'm so glad I don't live in California where I can obtain an AKM by literally going and meeting a guy in a truck stop parking lot and exchanging my short shotgun and like a few cases of high velocity ammo for the AKM, a bunch of 30, like a stack of 30 round mags, and an entire box of like 1,000 rounds of steel case.
I plead the fifth.
I mean, you can do that in California too. It's just you got to be much more careful about it. I can do it in the middle of the fucking day, waving at a state trooper as he parks. So.
Yep.
So, all right, let's. So this is an article from guns.com. It's a couple days old, but Congress session this week. Half dozen anti-gun measures have already been filed in the House Judiciary Committee. The majority of those 4 bills, they were submitted by Representative Sheila Jackson Lee out of Texas.
Oh, what a surprise! How the hell is she getting elected in Texas? I mean, honestly.
Seriously.
Austin.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, that would be it.
So
Dallas would have been my other guess there.
Austin, but the 5th and 6th are filed by Reps Bobby Rush, Democrat out of Illinois, and Al Green, Democrat out of Texas. So, but HR 30 is to increase public safety by punishing and deterring firearms trafficking. That wants to increase punishments for firearms traffickers. HR 121 to provide for the hiring of 200 additional BATFE agents and investigators to enforce gun laws. So it means a bigger budget for the ATF.
Well, yeah, and they need that if they're going to increase enforcement and add all these extra laws. They need more BATFE agents.
Here's a good one. HR 125 to amend Title 18 of the United States Code to provide for a 7-day waiting period for semi-automatic firearms, silencer, armor-piercing ammunition, or large-capacity ammunition magazine may be transferred.
Which means if there's a waiting period, you need to get a background check in order to get
a magazine or
standard capacity magazines.
Yeah. Before it could be transferred, which means it could be transferred from gun show, from a licensed firearms dealer, or I would bet private to private sales.
Well, in the whole premise of a waiting period is fucking retarded. It basically says that you are going to buy a gun in the heat of the moment, like you are going to get that gun from Bass Pro Shop and then immediately go out and fucking kill somebody. And so hey, maybe if we give them a waiting period, so you can calm down and think about it, and they won't go do this heinous act, so nobody fucking ever. Like it's just that aspect is fucking retarded right there.
It has never saved anyone ever. None of those waiting periods. No. Even Wisconsin has a waiting period for pistols. It has done nothing to change a thing. Not a zilch of zero.
California has a 10-day waiting period.
Yeah.
which is affectionately called a quote cooling off period.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah.
Take
I
a
mean, the
deep breath,
fact that
go drink a beer, relax, guy. Don't,
yeah,
don't,
the
Cal-
fact that there's a waiting period for this, and by the way, California,
Oh
ooga
God,
booga
Ooga
booga.
Is that a
The fact
40?
that I have a waiting period for this is a 40 rounder, by the way. The fact that I have a waiting period, they want a waiting period for this.
That's 4 times the maximum capacity number of rounds I can have legally.
You know what's funny is I can like reach back here and I can be like, hey, look, here's another. There's 80 rounds right there. And then I can reach back here and I can be like, hey, you know what else I got is a 30, and I can throw one of those in there.
Well, see, you need a waiting period because imagine what happens if you tape them all together lengthwise. Now you've got a 100 killing machine ready to go. So this is definitely something we need to save us from all this insanity that's going to ensue. Because God knows every constitutional carry state's a fucking free fire zone. So.
Oh yeah, everybody just gets mowed down constantly. It's an absolute war zone. It's terrible. That's why you got to have body armor.
Won't you think of the children? That's what carbine length rifles are for.
There was the one meme, and it was the cartoon, and it was the little kid, and it said, "Hello, sir, I am a small child. Won't you give up your rifle so that I can be safe?" And then the next picture is the guy's just punting the kid, like a la South Park, just out of the
picture. Screw you.
One of my favorites. It says something to the effect of give up your firearms for kids or something like that. And it says something about firearms for kids, and it says, so I made the kid a firearm also, and it's like this short stroke pistol grip or pistol stock, like 8-inch barrel.
I don't even think it's 8-inch. I think it's like 4-inch.
Yeah.
That thing was freaking tiny.
Accurate.
The new Palmetto State AK-9. That's perfect for a kid.
Yeah, absolutely.
9mm AK. Oh.
Well, Zero recoil.
AK USA makes the Vityaz, the semi-auto version of the Vityaz, which is the KP9. That's a 9mm AK, real short little barrel and stuff. It's freaking fantastic. You could also give a kid the MPXK, a SIG MPXK, you know? And boom, nice little short, tiny thing, little pistol grip. And it teaches them the manual of arms for an AR, so it's a win all the way around.
Yeah.
Chris Vector has almost no recoil, so even the littlest kids could use it. I know. There's literally no point in a semi-auto Vector at all.
Yeah, this is the world's most useless gun, especially when you have to make it a rifle length barrel. So it's got this like obscenely long fake suppressor on the end of it, and it just looks stupid. And it's the entire point of that recoil system, that novel recoil system, is to help with full auto fire, which it does, but does it actually in a way that you wouldn't get from a linear recoil? Probably not.
All right, here's a fun one. HR 127, to provide for the licensing of firearm and ammunition possession and the registration of firearms and prohibit the possession of certain ammunition.
Come and take it.
Who let's see. I'm gonna look up who sent that one in.
The idea of firearms
that was a Sheila Jackson Lee bill.
Oh, there's a surprise. And the thing is it stands a possibility of passing.
They do have a Democrat-controlled House and Senate.
And
what's to say that we prohibit possession of certain ammunition? What's to say that certain ammunition isn't 55 Full Metal Jacket 223?
Well, okay, hold on. Okay, so we have this here in California. We have this issue in California. Like San Francisco banned the possession and usage of hollow point ammunition. Right? You can still carry and do all that and have with like Full Metal Jacket, right? Which over penetrates.
Yeah,
you can't. But you can't use hollow points, which are designed to stop in the cavity.
We wouldn't want
not
any
fully
innocent
penetrate.
bystanders to not get shot.
Yeah.
Oh.
Exactly. Like, yeah, like someone unloads with a 10 millimeter full metal jacket. Oh, why did I hit the guy behind him? Well, if he had a hollow point, just stopped him dead.
An FMJ and 10 millimeter. If that guy isn't wearing body armor, you hit the guy behind the guy. Behind your target. that fucker just kept on going.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the dumb. But the thing is, it's the same thing. It's built out of that same hysteria as like the Black Talons being banned. Like, and they're actually not. That's a myth. You can totally go buy the modern version of the Black Talons because they were garbage rounds anyway back in the day. All they are is basically just a frangible round. Like they're like a partially fragmented already, so that they open up really nicely in these beautiful little petals. That's all they actually are. There's nothing special about them. They're like, they're cop killer round. They're fucking hollow points.
I was about to make that point. When back in the day, I was like, well, don't you support the banning of cop killer rounds? Well, what's not a cop? It depends on how you use it. It's what is it? What's the definition of a cop killer round? Isn't it any round that you shoot a cop with? Like, where does that stop?
A blowgun dart can be a cop killer round, for God's sake. When are we going to have common sense blow dart gun control?
Ban COVID. COVID kills cops. All right.
Yeah, exactly.
HR 130 to require the safe storage of firearms and ammunition, and to require the investigation of reports of improper storage of firearms or ammunition.
How does that get enforced? What's the process that is going to get enforced? They're going to have in-home visit now?
It's also a Sheila Jackson Lee bill.
Oh, yeah, of course. So, just screw the Fourth Amendment. They can just show up anytime, come into your house, and, make sure that you are in compliance with HR 130. Like,
but between all the Alexas and all that other stuff, like the Amazon Echoes and the Ring doorbells, and they already know.
Yeah, and it's ridiculous. It's all of these bills are like, I saw them and I was just like, immediately my thought was, well, I guess that's how this is starting then.
Yeah.
So I guess that's how this is starting.
And this is going to be everyone's favorite bill. Like this one, I bet money gets passed. This is HR 167 to prohibit the transfer of a firearm at a gun show by a person who is not a federally licensed firearms dealer.
You already can't do that.
My gun show loophole.
Yeah, that just highlights the ignorance that is out there surrounding how to get a firearm, and what is what's not legal.
Yeah, because I mean, right now already, if you can be a private citizen selling guns at a gun show, as long as it's a one-off thing and it's a reasonable amount of guns that you're selling, you'll be fine. You won't run afoul of the of any of the gun laws. However, you can't transfer ownership of that firearm yourself. You will have to give it to an FFL to run a background check in order to give it to that person if you are selling it at a gun show under current laws.
Yeah, unless you just meet him out back of the Walmart in 30 minutes,
Well, yeah, that depending on the state.
I've never bought anything from a van in a gun show parking lot ever.
Well, speaking of that too, buying things out of trunks, it's not like the criminals, like all of these gangbangers that are killing people and things, are going out and going to gun shows to go buy their guns. They're not going to be doing that. They're not already following the law. What they're doing is they're buying already stolen guns out of the trunks of people's cars. That's not about. You're
not taking it to a place where you are required to transfer it to an FFL. Like, yeah, totally.
4474. And then the article goes on to say that Congressman David Sicilian, a Rhode Island Democrat, has for the past 2 sessions entered a bid to reboot and expand the long expired federal ban on assault weapons within the first 2 weeks of being sworn in. His latest attempt, which expired in December without leaving committee, had 216 co-sponsors, which means we are definitely going to see that one again.
Yep. We're going to see it, and it may pass. And, I mean, I have a feeling that they're going to try and pass it without a grandfather clause this time.
Yeah. So, but the current House party breakdown, the Dems own 222, Republicans 211. So,
I mean, that's this is how it starts, man. This is how it's going to start. I figured that was happening, but this is how it's going to start.
Yep. So.
And I mean, careful what they wish for, because I'm not turning in nothing. I'm not, not happening. I refuse to comply. So, I don't even have, my FBI handler. We can, go and put me on record. It's not happening. So, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
The armed abolitionist patch.
Yeah, and when I told my very soon to be 14-year-old son, I was like, kid, I the way things are going, you might get a phone call from me one day, and it's going to be a very short, and I love you, and I did the best that I could, but they're here, and try to remember everything that I taught you, and we're going to try to make that the most painful gun confiscation
there you go
that's ever been. I hope to make that. I hope when they do, I hope I make the national news.
Yep. Say when.
Yeah.
I'm your Huckleberry.
There's only one reason that a local gun conversation makes the national news. It's because it was particularly violent. Yeah, that's a great one.
I love that patch. I really do. So,
that's what we're looking at. That's the future, man. It's anybody who's been sitting on the fence over gun rights, who's been convinced, oh, nobody's coming for your guns, blah blah blah. Well, yeah, they clearly fucking are.
Yep. Well,
they are about to.
All right, let's get into that since we're dancing around the subject. This past week, the little thingy that happened on Wednesday at Capitol Hill. You guys may have seen something about it.
The angry yells of impotent rage.
I just saw it in passing.
Yeah.
I mean, I may have seen something get mentioned. I saw a meme or two that brought it up. I don't.
Right.
The Viking shaman.
The memes of that guy are
how tired are you getting seeing that guy?
I'm not at all. I love it. Every meme.
You know how many people I've seen point to his walnut tattoo and be like, "Oh, it's a pedo symbol."
It's a Feldnut. It's what? It's an ancient Viking symbol.
I didn't even see it had a Volknut on him.
Yeah,
right
on
here on
his chest. Right up.
I didn't even look that close. I was looking at the horns too much. I guess.
The horns, and then like the American flag face paint, like that's kind of, yeah.
He's definitely got some individual style.
That's the thing that he was wearing. That's wow. Okay. I mean, I've seen people rock stuff like that. Not quite the face paint, but the rest of the stuff occasionally. Usually around campfires in the woods, and it involves peyote. So
I've seen people wear similar things on Trailer Park Meth.
Yeah,
they don't get fancy with peyote around here.
I love the one meme with when you come out of your K-hole and suddenly realize that you're in the middle of this the Capitol building.
The memes, like, I don't know, like it's a toss-up for me between the memes and and the what it represents. That's my favorite part because like the memes, you guys know I love memes. Memes are right next to my heart, right? It's like freedom memes, chicken nuggets, right? Those are my thing.
Chicken nuggets.
And chicken nuggets.
Yeah.
But and then like, so like my whole thing. There's been a lot of people that are, they didn't do anything, they didn't achieve anything, right? No, politicians were hurt, blah 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 blah. Like my whole thing is that has nothing to do with what really happened, right? Even they're Trumpers and all that good stuff. I get that, but what it did is it set a precedent. It broke a mold, right? For the longest time, there was this stigma, right? For the last like 200 years, there's a stigma about government is holy, right? And doing this, right? Like they went the quote unquote right? The righties, the Trumpers, the conservatives, what do you want to call them? They went from a permitted, peaceful protest in which they picked up their own trash to anti-mask protests, to anti-quarantine protests, to alleged plots of kidnapping politicians, to storming the freaking Capitol in less than a year.
Yeah. In barely 6 months.
Well, the protest was in January, right? The Big Begaloo was in January.
Well, that first one, yeah, but I mean, like it started changing from that in less than 6. Like that's a rapid change and descent, and it's. I mean, it's one of those things that like I've talked about before on a couple podcasts with the idea that, I mean, historically revolutions, like extreme changes, political changes that lead to a lot of violence, tend to be very, very slow, and then they reach a point of critical mass. It's kind of the avalanche idea where initially it's slowly building and building and building, and then all it takes is that one thing, and then it will just go. And once it's going, there's no stopping it. It's going to happen. You can't prevent it.
Yes.
And I think that's what we've hit in the United States is what we've been watching for the past 15 years. We've been watching this steadily build and build and build and build and build. And now we're at this point where we've hit critical mass and it's going. And there's no stopping it now. Now that they've done it.
Well, okay, so all this happened in the last year. And now we're coming into a Democrat-controlled House, Democrat-controlled Senate, Democrat president. We're already pre-filed gun control bills. We're already talking assault weapons bans. We're talking armor bans with no grandfather clause. We're talking like mag limits. We're talking like just this whole everything that they stand against, literally stand against. After this year of everything ramping up, and then this is coming along. Like I tell you, boys, I'm a little excited.
And it seems like too that they're like Overton window be damned at this point. It seems like they've got so much momentum.
There was a truck. There was a truck that crashed right through the Overton window. It took out the frame. It took out part of the wall.
Yeah.
It's idling in the living room right now.
Well, think about some of the videos we've been seeing in the past week. I mean, we've seen conservatives stomp on thin blue line flags.
Yes.
We've seen them confront Lindsey Graham in the airport and call him a traitor. I mean, and you talk about a high priest of the religion right there, and all of the negative reactions on Pence's Twitter, that he's been getting. Like you're starting to see like the conservatives are starting to realize like, hey, maybe the Republican Party's not the answer. It's great to see.
Well, yeah, they finally decided to start looking at slaughtering their sacred cow.
Yeah.
Right? To quote Frank Zappa, right? I love this quote. He says, "Without deviation from the norm, progress is not possible."
Yeah.
Right, and that's what we're seeing. We're seeing a lot of people deviating from their normal preconceived ideas and ideologies.
Yeah. Well, it's it's the result of they could be in denial for so long and still keep convincing themselves like, okay, well, maybe things will get better. Maybe it'll be okay. Maybe, we'll be able to fix it within the political process.
Well, yeah,
and now they're realizing it doesn't matter.
That's the libertarian viewpoint, right? When you go from two-party system, you become a libertarian, right? You get this ideological belief that we can do this, we can change it. We just have to educate the right people. We have to do this. We have to do that. We do that, right? And then when you realize that that's a fucking pipe dream, you get angry. Like when you first come to anarchism, doesn't matter who you are, you go through an angry anarchist phase.
Yep.
And that's where they're at. I'm not saying they're anarchists, but they've come to the point that politically that they can't do anything. So they've gone to the point where they've given up on the hope, and they've gotten very angry and disenfranchised.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What's almost all of my friends are conservative minded, if not Republican voters. And when I was talking to them, I was like, I'll tell you what, guys, I hope that Biden does win, because I think that right there is gonna need to happen. That's gonna be what it takes, because if Trump wins, everyone's just gonna fall back and go back into that lackadaisical kind of, oh, everything will be okay. Our boy won, so we don't have to do anything. We can just sit back, be lazy fucks, and not embrace it. But now everyone's starting to fucking panic, and I think that I want to see conservative people start to back away from the Republican Party and just say, hey, yeah, there's no political solution to this thing, and it sucks that we had to hear you to realize it. But
the craziest thing is I'm even hearing agreement when I say the entire system is irretrievably broken and cannot be salvaged. I am even now getting, because of Biden, because there was a ton of people on the left who didn't like Biden either.
Yes.
And didn't want him. I am now actually getting agreement from them too, that the time to have the government that we have is past. It clearly doesn't work. It's broken. We need to get rid of it. And when I start getting agreement from both sides of the aisle that yes, it's time to get rid of it, it's happening.
I think the best quote that I heard all week, and it was from Eric July, and he says you have two groups of people in this kind of segues a little bit into the article, but you have two groups of people in this country who fundamentally, diametrically do not agree with each other, and your solution is to force them to live under the same government. That's your solution. And he was talking about, he said, everyone conflates secession with civil war, and they conflate it with violence. And he goes, secession might actually be the least violent way forward at this point, because keeping everyone together under the same roof is clearly not working. So that was my favorite quote from the week. I thought that just hit it out of the park.
Oh yeah, July's been on fire the past week.
Oh.
His quotes have just been amazing. Like every one of his tweets, I'm like, yes, that.
His videos have been, man, his delivery, and he never stumbles. It's just so, man, yeah.
Eric July, Pete Quinones, and Shane Hazel. I don't know if you guys know Shane Hazel. Shane Hazel is the reason there was a runoff in Georgia. Right, libertarian in Georgia. He's part of this whole we need to radicalize people to cause change.
Yeah.
Camp right now, like him and Pete Quinones, the Mises Libertarian Caucus. Talk about taking over the Libertarian Party and all this other stuff through radicalizing people. Like the big tagline is like, "There's no domestic terrorists that are libertarians." Like how can you call yourself like extreme if there's the federal government's not scared of you?
Well, yeah. Right? At this point, if you're not viewed as a dangerous extremist, you are a pussy. Like
complacent.
You're completely and you're an irrelevant afterthought at this point, because everything has been pushed to the extremes. You are either extreme right or extreme left, or want none of it, and you're an anarchist at this point. And anyone who pretends that they're not, who tries to sit in the middle, is because they're just an irrelevant milquetoast person. Like they don't matter.
I hate to use this BS line about 3%, right? That was the the thing under the American Revolution, the Revolutionary War, it was like 3% of the population fought back, blah blah blah, and then like the rest of the population either stayed out of it or, they tried to stay neutral, or they helped a little bit, right? Well, that's what it is. There's like the extreme 3%, right, on the right, and then there's like the extreme 3% on the left, and there's pieces of both sides that help, and then there's like the anarchists that are like, I don't want any of it. I appreciate you two fighting. Like, that's enjoyable. I love the memes. I'm not.
Whatever
like,
you do, do not stop the memes.
I'll help
Pure
you
meme
tear
gold.
it down. I'll help you tear it down. I ain't helping you build anything back up. In fact, I'll probably shoot you in the face if you try to build it back up.
Yeah.
Once
Hypothetically,
it's gone, I want it to be
in
gone.
Minecraft.
And that's the thing too, is remember, as I always say, that to quote Littlefinger, Lord Baelish from Game of Thrones, chaos is not a pit. Chaos is in fact a ladder. At least in this case, when it comes to political chaos, it is a ladder, and it's a ladder that anarchists can use. But you have to be willing and able to use it, because if you're not, at this point, if you call yourself an anarchist and you're not evangelizing anarchism to people, like, now is the time to do that. If there was ever a moment in your life where you needed to be telling people about anarchism and presenting this alternative, it is right now.
Have you seen the post from anarchists talking about how storming the Capitol building was a NAP violation?
Oh, Jesus
Christ.
Anarchist, quota, air quotes.
You see, Nick Sarwark essentially said that on Twitter. Nick Sarwark is the ex-president of the Libertarian Party. Absolutely fucking roasted. It was beautiful.
Good. He should be.
Yeah, as you should be, because it's that that's kind of the crux of so many of these guys' justification for why they're not doing anything is, it would violate the NAP, and they're ignoring the entire time that the mere existence of government is itself a violation of non-aggression.
Yeah.
The only reason that a government can exist is because it is claiming and can enforce the fact that it has the sole discretion to use coercive force.
Yes.
That's it.
Every single politician in that building, the people helping them in that building, were complacent in the usurpation of your freedoms. Right? Yeah. And I get it. Like, we shouldn't go be killing bookkeepers and secretaries and all that shit. I'm not saying that. I'm absolutely not saying that. They're not a threat to you. They're bookkeepers and politicians. They're bookkeepers and secretaries. But they're not innocent. They know who they work for.
Well, yeah, it's exactly the same thing as during the Holocaust. The people who were really responsible for the Holocaust weren't Himmler. It wasn't Hitler. It was the guy who made sure that the trains ran on time. It's the guy who made sure that the train track was maintained. It's the guys who made sure that they kept track of all of the registered Jews. It's those functionaries. They're the reason that machine could run. If you don't have the cogs, the machine can't function. It's the same thing in the Soviet Union. The Politburo themselves weren't responsible for the gulags. They didn't do that. It was the everyday functionaries. It was the neighbors who denounced their neighbors. It was all of that was responsible for that. It was all of the little bits and pieces. So if you think that by being a bit or piece in that somehow you're innocent of the greater achievement of that machine, you're wrong.
Yeah,
wrong.
Complacency in the face of evil is being part of evil. That's what it really comes down to. And we can talk about the I got an article from Mises about the American Revolution was a culture war. And I think this ties in a lot to what we're currently seeing. And what we are currently seeing is a culture war. Right? There's no, I don't want to say there's no, but there's a very minute culture of freedom in this country, right? And I don't mean that ethno-state, skin color bullshit culture. I mean people that grow up eating, breathing, sleeping, living freedom, living liberty, living in a way that doesn't hurt anyone else, that doesn't support the evil that is the cathedral, the government. There's a very small culture of people that live that way, right? We have a huge culture of slavery. I don't, and not the chain slavery. It's the, you guys know what I'm saying, right?
Yeah, it's not chattel slavery, but it's it's like it almost financial slavery, really. You know, we're all just tax cattle on a tax farm.
Well, it's serfdom, is what it is. It's serfdom. And that existed in Russia clear into, the rule of the Romanovs way later than it existed in the entire rest of Europe. I mean, that existed in Russia until the Russian Revolution, really. And that you had serfs. They could be bought and sold. They weren't slaves in the idea that they were chained up and they were beaten regularly and everything else, but they couldn't own land. They couldn't go off and do whatever they wanted. They had to live where their masters told them to live, and they were owned.
Yeah.
Like there are bookkeeping things within, medieval Europe and in Russia where, kings and things will grant X amount of serfs to these nobles and things and take their serfs away and stuff. Like that was a threat. That's where we're at. I mean, is we're essentially just serfs where day to day we're not slaves, but at the end of it, no, we're all slaves.
So I want to read these two paragraphs from this article. Again, this article will be linked. All articles we talk about are linked in the description. But the taxation without representation argument endures, of course, because it is useful for the regime and its backers. Advocates for the political status quo insist there is no need for anything like the Boston Tea Party today because modern Americans enjoy representation in Congress. We are told that taxation and the regulatory state are all necessarily moral and legitimate because the voters are, quote, represented. Even conservatives who often claim to be, quote, for small government, often oppose radical opposition to the regime, such as secession, on the grounds that the political resistance movements are only acceptable when there is no political representation. The implication is that since the United States holds elections every now and then, no political action outside of voting and maybe a little sign waving is allowed. It's unlikely that the Sons of Liberty would have bought that argument. The small number of millionaires who meet Washington, D.C. nowadays are hardly representative of the American public back home. The 1770s equivalent would have consisted of throwing the Americans a few bones in the form of a handful of votes in Parliament, with seats to be readily held by the few wealthy colonists far beyond the reach or influence of the average members of the Sons of Liberty.
Yep.
So,
exactly. I mean, and that's that's exactly the thing that you saw the French Revolution, where they gave the people votes and, to participate. And then at the end of the day, the king was still just like, nah, and could just ignore them. So, that was, because that was the whole thing that kind of led to the French Revolution, was that finally people realized, wait a minute, we don't actually have any say. Like our voices are in fact actually irrelevant.
Well, I mean, we have that with the Electoral College.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's
your vote doesn't matter if somebody else has. If the Electoral College exists, at any rate, your individual vote doesn't matter.
Yeah, exactly. And and remember that who the Electoral College is secret. We don't get to know who they are.
Yeah. And there's little to no punishment for going against the vote of the people.
Yeah. So to think that it's not an oligarchy is absurd, because it absolutely is. Even if your voting made any difference, any appreciable difference at all, and this wasn't already all pre-decided, and we all know that it is, even if that was the case, an entire state could vote one way. The members of the Electoral College for that state could be like, nah, I hate that guy, and then not vote for him, and all of your voices were just muted.
That's it.
Yeah, well, I mean, we talked about it a couple months ago about this election like $7.5 billion was spent on this election, right? And like it was like $5.5 billion of that was lobbying money and political action committees, and like the other $2 billion was from like individual donors being like sent to politicians for advertising and whatnot. But like they spent $7.5 billion on this election, and you think government represents you?
No.
Like we were talking before we started recording. Like, Biden's pick for Secretary of Defense has to leave his job at Raytheon to take the job as a Secretary of Defense. Oh, and he's getting a $1.7 million bonus.
Bonus for leaving his job to go to government. That was built into his contract, that if he managed to get appointed to a government spot, he got a bonus to quit.
That was a very real possibility when they put that in. That's something that there's precedent for that happening before.
Bezos, Amazon just hired a lobbyist that is the brother of one of the political advisors for Joe Biden.
To quote George Carlin, it's a great big club, and you aren't fucking in it.
It's a fucking caste system.
It is. It's a blatant caste system, and it's the most insidious kind of caste system, because it's a caste system that convinces people, oh, but it's not a caste system, and it's, don't worry, you can advance, you can have a voice. Promise. Scouts honor.
Just vote.
You matter.
Just vote really hard.
Yeah, don't worry, you matter. I mean, that was one of the things too. That's if you watch when I was on Nick Irwin's podcast and talking about how I became an anarchist, that was one of the things that pushed me into it. Is I still thought, like, I was largely a libertarian, but I still thought, because of that I can work within the political process and I can change things from the inside. And that all changed when I went to a meeting, a closed door, and I mean closed, like this is a secret meeting, invite only, at the house of the guy who runs the Republican Party here in the state of Wisconsin. A bunch of people, including Governor Walker and other people, were there, and it was to discuss strategy for how, even though local elections are supposed to be non-party, how the Republican Party could secretly help people that it wanted in office and set that up. And I mean, it was like local major business owners and all this other stuff were there. And like how I wound up with an invite still kind of blows my mind, because it's not like I had any clout at all. But they wanted me to run at the time against Tammy Baldwin, who's a state senator now. And I was supposed to run against her, until I brought up, when I introduced myself to the group, that I was a libertarian and that I held freedom above all, and thought and honestly believed that the less government involvement in people's lives, the better. Until I said that, I was the pick. And within literally hours of that meeting, I was told, never mind, we're going with Dan Kapanke instead, who's a former senator and a very mainstream Republican. And I'm like, okay, yep, that told me everything I needed to know.
If you just keep your mouth shut, you could be in a 3-piece suit right now, smoking that big cigar while getting your shoes polished.
While getting shoes polished in an office from an intern. Yeah.
Shoes polished.
That's what we're calling it. All right.
And then when people ask why you hired her, you can just say because she has great assets. So, all right.
I tell you what, her brain is just phenomenal.
It's big, really big.
It's all about her head.
Up to here.
All right. I want to read another paragraph from this article. By the late 1700s, the fervor behind the revolution had already gone beyond mere complaints about taxation. This was just one issue among many. Rather, the revolution quickly became a culture war of self-styled, quote, Americans were taking up arms against foreign, immoral, corrupt oppressors. Mere offers of, quote, representation were hardly sufficient at this point, and unlikely any such offer were going to be held after the events of 1775, when the British finally marched into Massachusetts and opened fire on American militiamen. After that, the war had become, to use Rothbard's term, quote, a war of national liberation. The ideological and psychological divide perhaps explained the ferocity which with the American revolutionaries resisted British rule.
Yeah, and nobody wants to talk about that ferocity either. You'll notice, like in school, when you learn about it, no one talks about just how nasty the colonists actually got, where they were like breaking into the homes of British officers and murdering them in their beds and stuff, and ambushing. You know, when they talk about, like, you'll hear about ambushing the tax collectors and stuff and being tarred and feathered, and it's just glossed over as, oh, they just kind of, they threw this tar on them, and as if it was no big deal.
That's literally the next segment of the article.
Yeah, they don't want to talk about what that actually entails and what happens to you if that happens.
Yeah, well, I mean, to tie this back to what happened and what's currently happening, the Americans, they felt disenfranchised, right? They felt completely unrepresented by the government and that was ruling over them. Disenfranchised. It's a terrible feeling. Like when you feel, oh, what's the word? Voiceless? Right? I mean that should be it. That should be a term you guys know from, what is it? Riots or violence? Violence is the voice of the
the violence is the voice of the voiceless. And those who, JFK himself said, those who make peaceful revolution impossible make violent revolution inevitable.
Yeah. And we're not saying Wednesday was not a revolution. The
No,
storming of the Capitol was not
No.
a revolution.
That was an impudent status circle jerk is what that was. That was.
I saw what Michael Malice said this week. He said the difference between, because everyone's calling it an insurrection, the difference between an insurrection and resistance is merely corporate sponsorship at this point. So it's sorry you don't have big tech backing you up. So it's an insurrection. It's
Well, yeah, I
violent,
mean, history is written by the victors, right? That's what we're told, right? That's what we're told about the American Indian heritage and all that good stuff. Well, they're conquered people. Well, we are a conquered people.
Yeah.
For the most part.
And that's also, the corporate sponsorship. I mean, Ireland, the Irish Civil War, part of the reason why it stalled out initially after the Pro-Lochnairian in Easter of 16 was that they didn't have backup. They didn't have anybody that could get them guns. They didn't have anybody who could get them ammunition. They didn't have any of that. Like, okay, I can do a fight once for a few hours, and that's all I got. Well, when that happens, it peters out. And then later on, over the years, then the Germans, because the Germans were like, hey, wait a minute, this will distract the British. This could be a good idea. And then start shipping them arms and ammunition, although weirdly they also ship them to the UVF. So both sides. There was a lot of M98s, German M98s being used, just saying, in the Irish Revolution. But that was when things turned into a real revolution, where a true civil war developed, was when suddenly there was backing from somebody who had the capability of backing them. Yeah. When that happened, now things have changed. The other thing that's weird about the American Revolution and the American Civil War and the Irish Civil War is that, everybody complains about the liberal media now, and we're not getting the right media coverage, and that's why we don't have the media coverage. They didn't then either. They just made their own fucking newspapers, didn't they? And they just started putting their own shit. So I'm just saying, like, if that's what's stopping you, dude, You can print your own stuff.
Yeah.
Start a fucking podcast, you sissies.
Yeah, exactly. Start your podcast. Make sure it's super professional like this one.
Yeah.
Don't edit shit.
Edit nothing. Just go live. No preparation whatsoever. Because, I mean, I know I don't prepare at all.
Well, to expand on that point, and looking at modern day, what's something, what would be something that Americans have in abundance to kind of help them out with a revolution or a civil war type situation? What's a thing that most, there's at least one or two for every American. I just want to
is it like 8 for every American or something like that?
I think at this point it's something like that. Yeah.
I mean, there were in the last year, in the last year, right? There was like 21 million first-time gun owners purchased firearms.
And wasn't a majority of them women too?
Not a majority.
There's quite a few.
The percentages of women and minorities were far higher than they were any year before.
Yeah, if you look at the reports lately, it's been like tons of these articles coming out about how all of these new gun owners that are suddenly occurring are not the people that traditionally people think of when they think of a gun owner. Like, it's not the mid 40s white male living in the country. It's it's women, it's young women, it's young men, teenagers, it's people who are of color who live in the inner cities, who are legally buying firearms and things, who are not involved in gangs and stuff. They're just average everyday people who are like, okay, clearly now I do need a gun, that are going out and buying it. And it's shifting the demographics so massively that it's no wonder that the left is intentionally trying to ignore it, because otherwise it would ruin their narrative.
And then the federal government is going to go ahead and make them all criminals now. So what's that do to the mindset right there?
Yeah.
So there's a surprise.
Thanks, guys. Like Jason, like you said, government's its own worst enemy. So
Hey,
thanks for that one.
Yeah. Okay. Back to this article. There's just a couple quick paragraphs. It's for now, the cultural divide in the United States today has yet to reach the proportions experienced during the Revolution, or for that matter, during the 1850s that led up to the American Civil War. But if hostilities reach this point, there will be little use in discussions over the size of the tax burden, mask mandates, or nuances of abortion policy. The disdain felt by each side for the other side will be far beyond mere compromise over arcane matters of policy. That's kind of where we're at. Just putting that out there.
Yeah. We've gotten. I forgot to latch that ammo case. That could have been.
No. They'll get up and run away.
You're in violation of HR 130.
That would have been bad, because that would have been a lot of rounds all over the place. No, what I was going to say was, at this point, people have realized that words don't fix things, and they're going to that.
Yeah.
And when you get to the point where this is where people feel, things are going to change whether you want them to or not.
Well, yeah, that's what they're saying. The 4 boxes, right? You got the ballot box, the soap box, the jury box, and the ammo box.
The ammo box.
Right? Well, the ballot box obviously doesn't work. The jury box doesn't work if you can't get on the jury. Right? The soap box, they're fucking banning everybody.
Well, yeah, you can't even, because that was, I think, too, that was like the last thing that everybody was hanging on to. Was like, but I can still get my voice heard on social media. And now that they're just banning people left and right, they're taking that away too.
Yeah.
Yep, Chris with the old black ball.
Yeah. Done.
So, but yeah, like our other podcast co-host Christopher, right? He got the big Zuck. What's that Charlie group? What's there, like 5 people in that group that have gotten the big Zuck? Christopher,
there's
it's quite a few. Oh Christ, I don't know. It's probably it's a lot.
Out of like 14 people, 5 of them big zucks.
Yeah.
And then the AnFam group I created, there's what, 7 or 8 in there out of 40.
Yeah, that are permanently banned from most social media. And the thing is it's not even, and like you'll get a lot of people, you'll see a lot of anarchists who will sit there and they'll yell and scream, well, they're private companies, they can do what they want. Well, first of all, no, they're not.
If you're
private
taking government money, you're not fucking private.
You're not private, not at all.
They're not private. They're not privately owned, really. They're government owned. Government has bought and paid for them at this point. And because of government control and it's not like government has had to threaten them. Like, remember, there's been apps that government has had to like full on threaten to do things. There was that email company a couple of years ago where government said, well, you have to turn over your user list because it was like this anonymous email server. And instead, they deleted everything and shut down the company because they flat out refused. No. Twitter could do that. Zuck could do that if he actually believed in freedom, but I think everybody has known for a very long time that robot fucking lizard android motherfucker definitely doesn't believe in freedom.
No.
Well, it was nice seeing you on Facebook, Andrew. Gonna miss you.
Man, I caught a 24-hour ban yesterday because I posted a meme making fun of Buffalo Face. All right? The Buffalo American flag face dude from the thing. It was like the steal his look meme, and it had like all this cheap shit you could buy to dress like him. And it was making fun of him, and I got a 24-hour ban for supporting a violent group.
Wow. That's a stretch, man.
I was like, what?
God, I love Telegram. Just put that out there.
Oh my God. But I mean, that's what we're seeing though, is we're seeing Twitter not behave like a private company. Facebook doesn't behave like a private company. Instagram doesn't behave like a private company. These companies are behaving as extensions of the government.
Well,
They're censoring speech.
You gotta remember too, like all these, Facebook, Twitter, Google, Amazon, Microsoft, like less than a month ago, weren't they on the floor talking to the Senate and antitrust hearings?
Yep.
Yeah.
And now they're serial banning thousands, because that's totally gonna help people get over their anger, is taking away their voices.
Yeah, that's definitely going to douse the flames. It's not going to incite any.
Here we go. Perfect tie-in. You, Chris, you were watching the show before we got on. You're watching Tread. You and I were talking about it.
Yeah.
Right, Marvin Hammer, Killdozer. They fucked with him, and they fucked with him, and they fucked with him, and then they ignored him. And then, he felt he had no recourse, right? And, we know what he did to Granby.
Reasonable men must sometimes be forced into doing unreasonable things.
Reasonable things. I was going to grab my patch. I should have grabbed it.
It's like, of all patches, I don't have a Killdozer patch.
Yeah, I don't have one either, and I'm kind of now kicking myself. Like, I'm looking at how many patches I have. So I have a fucking Donald Trump Space Force patch, for God's sake.
Hold on 1 sec. I'm grabbing it.
Like, I got some no step on snake patches and pedal patches, but I don't have any. I don't have a Killdozer patch. I need a Killdozer patch now. But either way,
I need to go
point,
get one.
The point I was trying to make is like Marvin Hammer, you can take that situation and apply it to the average American right now, or the average. I hate to use the word liberty loving because a lot of the Qtars aren't actually liberty loving. Ooh, there you go. That's the good one too.
Yep.
That's got the date on it. Where'd you get that one?
Yeah. I don't remember actually.
That doesn't help me.
I'm sorry. You do Google it.
I'm gonna have
if you're not kicked off tomorrow.
I'll Google it. We'll hit some Google foo and see it. I mean, assuming I don't get droned or blackbagged, I'll look it up and.
Yeah, I had to go take it off my Flectarn Park. I had it on the sleeve.
On your what? Flectarn what?
My Flectarn Parka.
I got to get me some Flecktarn because it actually works in Wisconsin because Wisconsin has so much of the same vegetation as Germany. It's
Yeah.
perfect.
I've got some Trophentarn, or I'm sorry, the Wustentarn that I wear in the wintertime. But yeah, and it's in the fall that works great out here in Iowa and Nebraska.
Yeah, there's my new one. It says violence may not be the best option, but it is an option.
Yeah, see, and here I am rocking that one. Actually, officer, I'm here to confiscate.
Yeah, no, officer, I'm here to confiscate you.
That's awesome. I love that.
That's a good one. But what I was getting at before, the situation, Marvin Hamer killed us, right? Like the government fucked with him and fucked with him and fucked with him and fucked with him, then they ignored him. And then he got desperate, right? Because they took away what he held value, right? That was his ability to resist peacefully. It's a similar situation. And right now, there's a what was it, 70 million votes for Trump, something like that, like 75 million for Biden or some BS. Like Trump got more votes than Obama did.
Yep.
Right. So, and I'm not saying like all the Trumpers, right? They're not, all freedom lovers. They're just, a lot of them are anti-liberal, anti-socialist. We're not going to go down that retarded rabbit hole, but
yeah.
There's a lot of people right now that absolutely do not feel represented. They absolutely do feel disenfranchised, and now in a lot of ways, they feel voiceless. Right, and then you throw things on top. Right, you got the Democrat-controlled House, Democrat-controlled Senate. You got Biden coming into office. Lindsey Graham doing Lindsey Graham things.
That guy just every time I think he couldn't hit a new low, I'm like, wow.
Oh, he does. Yeah.
He openly said that he would support Merrick Garland.
I just am in awe.
Yeah, but the point I'm getting to is that with all these gun control laws, right? We talked about before with the escalation over the last year, right? The willingness, setting a precedent, breaking that mold, and with everything new coming in, the future, whatever the federal government does is going to set the tone, right? If the government, they've already arrested a lot of these guys that stormed the Capitol.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and like not just the Buffalo guy and the lectern guy, but like there's police officers that were there as part of the raid, part of the storming. There were a retired lieutenant colonel in the Air Force that was there in full battle rattle, ready to go. He was arrested.
Representative from West Virginia, right? The FBI arrested him at his house.
Yeah, a couple of politicians that were in there and all sorts of stuff. But like, if the government comes out swinging, if Biden and the Dems come out swinging, the precedent is set, right? That you have to escalate force at that point. Things get really, really spicy, or the federal government says, "Oh wait, they're really angry. We need to chill. We're not going to go after these guys. We're not going to pass this gun control. We're just going to relax and try to calm everybody down," which would only embolden them, and they're going to get spicy again anyway.
Well, I mean, that's what happened. That's what happened when Trump was elected. Remember when we were looking at a possibility that Hillary Clinton was possibly going to win, and the right was basically saying we'll go to war over it and stuff. And then Trump gets selected, and he's really a psyop. He's selected
the great appeaser.
Yeah, so that all of the people who are ready to go to war will calm down for a little while and think they have a voice and convince themselves, no, it's okay, and their Stockholm syndrome will get worse again. And then now, as he's leaving office, you'll notice that his rhetoric inadvertently, his fake rhetoric, actually spurred people to action. But now what's happening is now he's been deplatformed and everything else. If the left doesn't figure out that they still need to chill for a while, and they actually do what they keep saying, which is, oh, it's going to be our time now, and it's time for revenge. Remember, they keep talking about revenge.
So many of those kind of tweets.
Yeah, and if that actually happens now, while everyone still remembers, hey, we stormed this state, we stormed buildings of this state and basically took them with minimal resistance. If they try too fast, that's it. It's game over. We are going into another civil war. That is going to freaking happen. There's nothing you can do about it. And I'm hoping that occurs because I really want to be able to bring popcorn as I watch those two sides of this conflict destroy each other. I want to just watch and be like, "This is great." Oh no! Oh, look at that! Oh,
you bring the popcorn. I'll bring the beer. We'll sit up there with the roof Koreans.
Lawn chairs, your feet kicked up. Maybe blast some Marilyn Manson and Power Man 5000, and
Chris
you got a
soundtrack
Chris
can
going
bring a
for
bush. Chris can bring a bush up on the roof with us, and he can sit there and hide in it with his fleck turn. And it's fucking og.
Yeah. A bush on the roof. They'll never see me.
Yeah, Andrew, he rocks an og.
Really, a fair og.
I have an AR too, and PTR 91, and yeah, I actually my AR is transition to my main go-to.
Of all of the bullpups that are out there, that is not what I would call the best. It's the manual of arms is very awkward. I don't like. I almost prefer the tactical tuna to it. The S2000 or whatever, the black.
Yeah, the FN.
And yeah, I almost prefer that. Actually, really, the two best are the FAMA for sure. The FAMA is amazing.
Yeah.
Absolutely amazing bullpup. Next cool is the Desert Tech MDR. The MDR is beyond fabulous. I have almost nothing but good things to say about the Desert Tech and the company, because when they found out that it was super ammunition sensitive because of the way they'd done their gas block, their no gas block, and people said, hey, this is a problem, and In Range and Forgotten Weapons said, hey, this is a problem, you sent us this test and this isn't working, they immediately not only fixed it for future ones, got a hold of all of the owners of them and said, hey, all you got to do is bring this in. We will send your gunsmith a new gas block and he can put it in and you will have the improved gas block for free. Sorry about that. We screwed up. So I love Desert.
So,
The AUG, I actually don't use the foregrip. I'll leave it pointed straight with the barrel, and I just grab it underneath the front where the enlarged trigger guard is. I just grab it like that, so it's kind of AR-like, and it does actually fit my hand pretty decent. Instead of buying like one of those $300 handguards that replaces it, that's kind of a waste. But yeah, if you handle it like that, it's definitely a lot better. I the foregrip is just, you can't use the foregrip like you would on an AR forehand because you're just grabbing the barrel at that point. So yeah.
God.
It's still a bullpup. It's still a bullpup.
Yeah, it's still, the problem is still mag changes, and if you have a malfunction, you're chucking it away and transitioning to pistol, and I don't like that idea at all. That's a terrible idea.
I did put a 2020 precision trigger sear in it, and a metal one, and it's pretty, for a bullpup, it's a pretty nice trigger right now. It's really nice.
That's actually surprising because bullpups have notoriously horrific triggers.
Yeah, it was noticeable the difference that it makes. You just basically, because the stock sears are plastic, and you put a metal one in, and apparently that's the difference maker. But yeah, and it's a really flat recoil impulse. I mean, it doesn't ride. I got a decent brake on there too, but it just, I mean, it's nothing. I mean, it's just it pops off really well. So yeah, that's fun.
I mean, I can see for the Boog that would be useful, because then if you're getting in and out of vehicles, which you're probably going to be doing a lot, bullpup, that's what it's designed for. That's what it's there for. You still have a full-length barrel, but it's a nice short, compact weapon that fits in vehicles very easily. I just prefer folding or telescoping stocks for that. It's It's just easier for me. Like, I'm good. I mean, when we ran and gunned, we'd hop out of birds and stuff, and our weapons were already in battle configuration. So everything's already set. Length of pole is already set on the collapsing stocks. It's all ready to rock. My personal favorite that I usually used if I had a choice was a Scar, just because I love the Scar. It destroys optics if you don't have a Scar compatible optic, but man, is it a lovely weapon to shoot. It's so nice. It's so reliable. It doesn't have malfunctions that ARs can be prone to. I freaking love it. I love that gun. Absolutely love that gun.
I grip too high, and the reciprocating bolt just.
Oh yeah, that'll not only hurt you but cause a malfunction. Yeah. What a wonderful. Yeah, I mean that's a problem, but I don't know. The AR is good, but I usually like to Scar. I also usually like the 240. And M240 just. Well, I'm a machine gun guy.
Yeah, you're the blackout guy right now, right?
Yeah, I have both of my primary ARs are in 300 blackout, and then I have an AK that's also a 7.62. I like the bigger round.
Yeah,
I just do. It goes through cover better, and I worry about going through cover, especially if you're in an urban setting or any kind of a forest setting. That's going to matter. It's going to make a difference. I would like to get an AR pistol in 458 SOCOM.
Yeah.
We're talking about going through cover in an urban setting.
Yeah.
Because
what was that? There was the meme, and it was the one where it's Undertaker behind, I think, Chris Jericho, and it was like the Fed boy with no back plate. It was like 458 SOCOM vibe check.
Surprise! That is a hell of a round. See, but that's what everybody needs to do, especially if they start doing the high capacity ammunition magazine bans, is go, well, but this only holds 8 rounds of 458 SOCOM.
Yeah.
Which means you just relabel all of these as 458 SOCOM mags. It only holds 8. So it's not high capacity anymore.
Gotcha.
And just slap a warning like not to be used with 5.56. And done.
That's actually, yeah, that's brilliant. That's amazing right there.
Imagine just dropping full auto 10 rounds of 458 SOCOM on the shooting line next to a couple of FUDs.
Oh, it kicks like a bitch, especially out of a short barrel, and the fire that you get out of those
I'm
just
sure.
obscene. I mean, that's why I always bring it up to people. That's why you use a suppressor. We use suppressors all the time by default, just always. Not because we cared about the sound, because we didn't. It was because we care about the muzzle flash.
Muzzle flash, yeah.
Because if you're rocking a 10-inch barrel and it's at night and you're on a rooftop and fire, everyone knows you're there now. So, you might as well have a big flashing neon sign. Shoot here with an arrow. I've seen guys do that. I actually watched a guy do that on a neighboring rooftop at night. He stood up and fired, and I watched it and went, oh, no. Around just endlessly at that rooftop, and everyone's like, oh, God. That's a terrible. Don't do that.
Yeah. Don't be that guy.
So, all right, we got about half hour left-ish. Have we beat that subject to death?
I'm sure we could more if we really wanted to.
I'm sure we do. I'm sure we do a couple episodes on that subject and what's coming.
Yeah, just endlessly go into it. Before we transition, I do want to reiterate again. I mean, as a military historian, looking at revolutions and looking at what precedes major civil wars, and not just older civil wars, but I mean even modern civil wars, what preceded the descent into chaos that was the Serbian Civil War. You know, I mean, everybody remembers Kosovo and stuff, and well, at least if you're over like 20 years old, you remember Kosovo. Well, 25. I don't know. Was that like 94, 95?
Something like that.
Yeah, 95, I think.
Yeah. So, I mean, a lot of people remember Kosovo, and that transition into that looked a lot like this does right now, as it led up to it. And you see it over and over and over again. The Spanish Civil War, you kind of see that. It's a constant thing where you get to this point where the government it can't tolerate speech that is dissident to it, because that speech has become so, has been made so extreme that if they allow it at all,
not only extreme, but accepted.
Yeah, and they can't allow it. They have to crack down on it. And when that occurs, like when it gets that extreme that the government can't allow it, the government has to disenfranchise those people, which is the flick over of the domino. And it has become inevitable at that point when it gets to that point, and that is where we're at. Is that domino is just waiting to get tipped, and once it does, you are either going to have to lead, follow, or get the fuck out the way.
Yep. It all started when they shot that gorilla.
Yeah.
Boy, Harambe!
Yeah, who knew that Harambe was the glue that held this timeline together? And now that he's gone, there's no. That's it.
So,
it all fell apart.
It all started in 2016 with this gorilla.
That fucking gorilla.
As we stare off into the distance talking to our grandkids.
Yeah, it killed that beautiful silverback right in front of us.
Yeah.
Yep.
And once that happened.
Yeah, 2024, we're all going to be sitting around a can of beans going, I miss the internet. And then somebody's going to draw a picture of Harambe. It says dicks out.
I mean, I'm planning on just like my post-apocalyptic year will simply feature my dick hanging out in honor of Harambe just by default.
Andrew out there running and gunning 300 blackout assless chaps. but they'll be camo though. They'll be camo assless chaps.
Custom made Flecktarn assless chaps.
Beautiful.
Just like the German army would run, yes.
He'll have a patch across his chest that says "Dicks in the dirt."
That's not funny. I got the nickname of Dirty Dick in training because on one jump.
Can you tell this story?
Yeah, I can tell this story.
I mean, morally, can you tell this story?
Yes. Yeah, I can tell this story. So it's a practice jump, and as I'm coming down, you only have so much control over those chutes. When you're jumping, it's for the most part, it's still the same kind of thing as you jumped with in World War II. It's a little improved, but I mean, if you're coming out of an airplane, you're all just kind of jumping and floating down. And I'm coming in, and as I'm coming in, I'm going forward. I'm going no, because I realize I'm coming straight at a pond, and I'm like, oh god. Oh no, it's going to be so wet and cold and dirty. No, please. And I skim across the water. It pulls my shoes in, pulls me just low enough that from the resistance of the water, it grabs my pants, pantses me, but my belt is tight enough. It also pulls my underwear off.
Oh.
And then pulls me across the water. And as I get to the mud, my boots dig in and I go face down into the mud and dick down into the mud and then slide across it for a good 15 feet before I stop. And it is like, and there's like 5 people who have landed in the field who just watched that happen. And they're just laughing so hard they can't breathe. And I get up and I look down and it's just a streak of black mud. And I'm like, well, that happened.
Wow.
Oh,
jeez.
Yeah. Second to last jump of training. It was wonderful. So everyone started calling me Dirty Dick, and for the longest freaking time, Double
shit.
D.
Yeah, something like that doesn't go away.
no.
Yep.
And now it'll live in infamy.
Yep. Dirty Dick.
That's beautiful.
All right. Article from Reason says in 2021, politics needs a Leave Us Alone coalition. This is
oh yeah.
And I love the picture. It's a barbed wire fence with a sign that says private property, no trespassing.
Leave me the fuck alone.
I love that image for a lot of reasons. And then we have an article about that, about the Hammonds. You guys remember the Hammonds, right?
Yeah.
The went to jail. Trump pardoned them. They were the reason for the Maui wildlife standoff occupation, whatever it was. Yep. Anyway, article 2021 politics needs a Leave Us Alone coalition. Quote, for every complex problem, there is an answer that is clear, simple, and wronged, wrote the late journalist and professional cynic H.L. Mencken. In our modern world, the answers to our myriad and complex problems always seem to involve the use of government. through taxation, regulation, bureaucracy, and even military invasion. As prevalent as the answer may be, it is usually, although not always, wrong, which is one lesson all Americans should learn from our unspeakable bad year. The pandemic has not only tragically killed more than 300,000 Americans, but has led to previously unimaginable restrictions on our freedom to live the lives we choose. We awake each morning pondering the terms upon which our leaders will allow us to leave our homes. The COVID-19 restrictions keep changing and the goalposts keep moving. Perhaps we will one day find out whether any of the government's oftentimes illogical and arbitrary edicts are working, but for now it's on a need-to-know basis. There's no magical solution, but that's the point. How many people do you think this not particularly magical thing called government has calmly guided us through
How now, brown cow? How now?
Brown.
There's no magic solution, but that's the point. How many people think this not particularly magical thing called government has calmly guided us through the coronavirus crisis? Although scholars dispute the authorship, the George Washington quotation is telling, quote, "Government is not reason, it is not eloquence, it is force. Like fire, it is a dangerous servant and fearful master. Never for a moment should it be left to irresponsible action." Right? Can't disagree with that. That's
Yep.
very relevant.
That is a spot-on fucking quote.
Yeah. Sometimes there's no choice but to use force, which is why we have a justice system based ultimately on compulsion. Our society, however, was founded on the idea that individuals greatly know what's best for themselves and that they should be left alone to pursue their dreams free from the unchecked dictates abet within a framework of checks and balances. The founders knew this easy button government solution often is worse than whatever problem it was trying to solve. With COVID-19, everyone is flying blind. We need some rules during the unusual times, but when we transfer too many decisions from individuals to government, we give imperfect politicians and regulators power to make choices for us based on the limited insight and political interest. That's
Well, I think we kind of always do that if we have government, but it's
well, yeah. I mean, government is its own worst enemy. We've mentioned that before. Government has no choice but to keep getting larger and larger and larger and more and more and more authoritarian, because it has to justify its own existence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Unless there's a continuing existential threat.
Yeah.
So like if there is a constant, an actual real constant threat that government has to deal with, that a government would need to deal with, if that were the case, then the government doesn't need to expand because it's always got that threat that can justify it. But once that goes away and it doesn't have it anymore, well, now either you need to create a new one.
Yeah.
Or
oddly, it just never goes away. It just morphs into something else. So
yeah,
right.
Look at that.
I mean, what is
hashtag war on terror?
Yeah. Well, it's totalitarianism is when government involves itself in every facet of life. So every problem that pops up, government tries to have a solution for it, and maybe they shouldn't have a solution for it. Maybe they should just leave it the fuck alone. Maybe they should just let people deal with it on their own terms. But that's they've set that precedent for themselves, and so we increasingly just have a more totalitarian system.
Yeah, what you're talking about is Gleichschaltung in German. That was the phrase that the Nazis used, was Gleichschaltung, the steady infiltration to all aspects of life by government.
So, skipping down a few paragraphs. As America's political and cultural disputes become akin to tribal warfare, it is easy to forget about the solutions that was embedded in our Constitution, a document that both sides at least pretend to still care about. The founders limited the powers of the federal government, reaffirming the pre-existing natural rights of the citizenry, and created dispersed layers of power to limit misuses of government muscle. We need to relearn those ideals. Long before Trump tore apart our fraying social fabric, conservative political activist Grover Norquist talked about the quote, "Leave Us Alone" coalition. The idea is simple, compelling, and in a perfect harmony with the nation's founding principles. We need not agree on religion, share the same cultural preferences, or come from the same regions, but we can unite in the belief that government should basically just leave us all the heck alone.
That's us, man. We're the Leave Us Alone the anarchists are the Leave Us Alone coalition, all right? We're the ones who accept, you accept other anarchists regardless of whether you believe in their religions. I disagree with tons of anarchists on their religious views because I'm a theist and a Christian. So I completely disagree with most anarchists. I don't care. We still agree politically completely that government should just not exist. We are the Leave Us the Hell Alone coalition that doesn't care about anything but freedom. You got, hi, notice me, senpai.
Nothing to add?
No, that pretty much nails it right there. What more do we need to say? Leave us alone. We can handle these things on our own. We don't need to have a pacifier shoved in our mouths and it taken care of for us.
Norquist portrays two warring factions. The nation has a quote takings coalition that views the quote proper role of government as taking things from one group and giving them to someone else. This includes the public sector unions, the social welfare industrial complex, and the utopians who want to rejigger society. Then he notes there is a group that does not want the government to give them something or to take something from others. They just want to be left alone. Most conservatives believe themselves to be part of the latter coalition, yet that's an increasing preposterous position. You are not motivated by the desire to have government leave people alone if you support tariffs, stricter immigration controls, limits on tech firms, higher defense, intelligence spending, asset forfeiture laws, a stepped-up drug war, and much of the social conservative agenda.
Exactly. I just want people to leave me personally alone is what they think. Not, I want people to leave people alone. It's, I want everyone to leave me alone. The people who I disagree with, don't leave them alone. Yeah, that's the modern conservative platform.
I agree. But, I got nothing to add to that. That was pretty much self-explanatory.
Yeah. And that's, like I said, that's us, man. We are the Leave Us the Hell Alone coalition. We are the group that honestly, and we just want, and the thing is everybody tries to pretend within modern mainstream politics the world over that anarchists want chaos, that we want people to not suffer consequences, that we don't want rules to society, that we just want everything to be this horrible, chaotic, and I can't even say Wild West, because the reality is, again, as a historian, the Wild West was not what people seem to think it was. It's, they think that we want that, and that is not what we are about. We are not about that. In fact, in an anarchist society, if you're an asshole who keeps screwing with people, you're going to suffer really far worse consequences than you will ever face underneath the government.
Midnight ride of the Vigilance Committee.
Exactly. That's the thing. And, and to a certain extent, that was something that happened in the Old West, too, where communities dealt with people themselves. Yeah. Remember the cattle wars, that one of the things that kind of made Wyatt Earp famous was the cattle wars. And they, that was communities that realized that government wasn't going to help them, that they were on their own, and just decided, you know what, screw this. I'm not going to keep dealing with this asshole. I'm going to go ahead and take care of this myself. We're going to get together and we're going to put a stop to this shit on our own.
Yeah. And
that was a lot of the Old West, because you didn't have much government, and what government you had could be bought, relatively easily.
Far less than lobbyists spend today.
Way less. Don't forget that the majority especially as you hit like the 1880s, 1890s, the majority of sheriffs in towns in what would be, what we would call the Old West, which really lasted into almost World War One, and I think people forget that. It's one of the many things that I love to bring up, that things that will skew your view of the timeline of the world incredibly. Consider that very frequently people drove Model Ts at the end of the Old West around and things. But the majority of those sheriffs were former gunfighters. Like, they were guns for hire just generically before that, who just realized that a government job was cushier. And then went and became sheriffs. And people wanted them as sheriffs because they knew that they intimidated everybody. So they would hire them. And the communities hired the sheriffs, right? The local towns would hire their marshals for the town themselves as a community, and then fire them if they weren't working out as a community themselves. So, and there wasn't taxes to pay for it. It was, you had to voluntarily contribute. You had to say, yeah, I really want a sheriff. I want a lawman here. So we're going to raise money and we're going to do this. And they raised money to build their own jail, and they raised money to build their own courthouse. And as a community, like, that was something that the Old West did do. Mm-hmm. And yeah, in that respect, that is kind of what anarchists want.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the dream right there, honestly.
So you're saying you're not in favor of things like, I don't know, grazing permits?
Gosh.
Negative.
On public land, which constitutionally the government has no business having control over?
No.
Yeah, the entire reason why the Louisiana Purchase had to be basically given away to everybody in that land rush was because government doesn't get to own land.
All right. I really only brought this article up because I care about this sort of thing, and I picked the articles. So.
Yeah, that works.
Trump administration pushes for grazing permits for men who inspired the Bundy standoff. We're not talking like the Bundy Ranch in Nevada standoff. We're talking the Maur Wildlife Refuge occupation. Hammond Bundy and those people were like, half the people were federal snitches. The Trump administration is once again pushing ahead with grazing permits for the two men pardoned by President Trump, whose arson conviction in part spurred the armed takeover of the Maur National Wildlife Refuge in Oregon. A New Year's Eve proposal from the Bureau of Land Management would allow Hammond ranches to graze on lands in southeast Oregon. The ranches operated by father-son duo Dwight and Steve Hammond, who were convicted of setting fire to public lands in 2012. That's not actually how it happened. There was a wildfire, and they set a backfire on their grazing land that burnt over like 12 acres of non-permitted land, and that got them convicted of arson.
Because they were trying to stop more land from burning.
Yeah.
And that's a standard practice in firefighting, is doing a backfire to prevent it from spreading. Yeah.
Fight fire with fire. So the BLM subsequently revoked the grazing privileges in 2014. The grazing privileges.
Privileges.
Interesting language.
Public land, as if they're not part of the public.
Yes. BLM subsequently revoked their grazing privileges in 2014, a move that caught the eye of Hammond Bundy, escalating to a 2016 takeover of the refugees' headquarters. That's not actually accurate. They took over the visitor center of the wildlife refuge that was used as the staging point for every BLM and environmental groups' invasion onto the Hammond Ranch into the Hammond grazing grounds.
Yeah, so they took their staging ground away from them, which is a really good military strategy.
Yeah,
and they don't allow them to have
literally in the middle of nowhere. Like literally in the middle of nowhere. So,
and it's a place that you probably could have rented for $20 a day,
something like that. Yeah,
for a party, they would have been like, all right, here's the key. Just make sure you clean up after yourself, and moved on with their day.
Yeah.
It's that irrelevant to everyone,
Yeah, that's
except
the truth.
for if you're trying to stage military operations from there.
Which we know, Bureau of Land Management, they're all about that shit.
Oh yeah, the twig pigs are the worst of the worst.
God, you're using that line now.
Yep, I'm using the twig pigs. I like it. It's but that's the thing. And and you see that, Wisconsin deals with that constantly with the DNR being really tyrannical, and everyone talks about trying to figure out ways to keep DNR off the land.
Here in my area, like if you go fishing without a permit, if you get caught fishing without a permit and you have a fish, right, they will take you to jail. They will take your rod, they will take your gear, and they will take the vehicle that transported you to the spot in which you were fishing without a permit.
Yep.
Damn.
Yeah.
I watched that firsthand over on the Minnesota side of the Mississippi, right on one of the dams. You can fish off of this dam. There's a little walkway and stuff, and you can fish. And this guy had over his bag limit of bluegill. Who the fuck cares? They're bluegill. Do you know how many fucking panfish are? So, but he had over his bag limit, and this DNR guy literally took his stringer away and then walked up and down the dam handing them out to people because he could seize them. And he just redistributed them to everybody and then left.
Yeah.
He just stole his fish. What if that's the only way that guy could eat?
Yeah. It's ridiculous. Okay, back to the article. The notice from the BLM would give the Hammond a permit, quote, due to their extensive historical use of the allotments, and give the public 15 days to protest the decision, which people are commenting and protesting. But extensive historical use of the allotments. They've been up there since like the 70s, I want to say. So for like 50 years, they've been running cows on this land. Back before it actually became BLM land. It was under a state agency or something like that, and then it became BLM land.
Well, and the sad thing is that the entire reason for the BLM to exist originally, the entire reason that was a thing, was because with public grazing lands, people felt that they needed someone to keep the big ranchers from monopolizing it for their cattle. That was the entire reason that BLM was founded.
It's the same reason like the Federal Reserve was created, right? It was to keep the value of the dollar, to prevent another,
right,
great collapse.
So again,
good job, guys.
Way to go.
Yeah, the road to hell paved with good intentions, and that was the thing. Is their idea was, well, we'll keep these big ranchers who have the biggest cattle and have all this money and everything else, the biggest herd of cattle, from monopolizing this land by founding this agency, creating this agency that will tell people, no, you only get to graze here at this amount of time, and then these other people get to. Yeah, that's why BLM even exists.
It's like who's the biggest monopoly around? Let's just turn it over to them, basically.
You made a deal with the devil, and now you're surprised you're getting burned.
It's funny you mentioned that because Trump pardoned the Hammonds in 2018, and then Interior Secretary Ryan Zinke then gave them grazing permits back, so they can go back to being ranchers. And then a judge in 2019 revoked the permits, arguing it was an abuse of discretion, and that the Secretary of the Interior, didn't undertake sufficient analysts to determine the Hammond ranches had a, quote, satisfactory record of performance. What this means? Okay, so what had happened is they got the permits back, and then an environmental group said, "Oh no, they're damaging the land."
The grazing land that's been used as grazing land for 150 years.
Because they put out water troughs and filled them so that, I don't know, the cattle could have fucking drinking water. So that they could have cattle in this area where no other fucking people were ranching.
Yeah, you got to remember, we're not talking about land with neighbors. We're talking about thousands and thousands and thousands of acres.
Southeast Oregon is considered high desert.
Yeah.
Yeah, of scrubland that is being used by absolutely no one.
Like
nobody.
The Western expansion, the homesteaders, the wagon trains that came through there, they passed through the area. They didn't stop. Very few
kept on going.
Very few people tried to homestead this area because that's all the life it could sustain was very few people.
Yeah, if you were there, you looked around.
Usually it was sheep farmers.
Yeah, you looked around. If you stopped there, you looked around and you went, "Now, little Ricky will die of dysentery," and you continued onward.
Yeah.
It is not a place. Yeah, it's not a place that people use. There's no industrial anything there. People aren't living there. There's not. You don't go on nature hikes through high desert scrubland. Okay, that isn't something people do. You know why? Because if you ever been to Nebraska, imagine that, except with less interesting vegetation. That is high desert right there. There's nothing at all. It's flat. It's boring. There's nothing. If you see an animal, you're excited because they're not usually there.
Oh, I will tell you, Western Nebraska is pretty dramatic landscape. It is pretty. There's lots of buttes out there and stuff like that. But yeah, it's all cattle ranchers. I mean, because there's a few farms that irrigate through groundwater, but those are pretty sparse once you get past like the eastern 1/3 of the state. After that, it's pretty much all cattle.
Well, there's very few places that you won't find some measure of groundwater. It's just how deep do you have to go to get to it?
Yeah.
I have been to places that you won't find groundwater. The Syrian desert is one. You don't find groundwater there at all. There is no water. There isn't even life.
Nothing.
In fact, the Syrian desert doesn't even have fucking bacteria. All right? There's nothing there. Nothing survives. Everything dies. But that is not like just because you can find groundwater if you dig deep enough. Can you imagine if they had dug a well, what that environmental team would have done?
Yeah.
They had dug a big fucking hole.
So
You dug a hole in scrubland? I can't believe it.
Oh my God, this barren wasteland, you've ruined it because there's a structure here now.
Yeah. All right, we have one more. You guys want to jump on this last article? We're getting real close to time.
Yeah.
Sure.
Fine. Fuck you guys. New York bill says governor could, quote, order the removal of people with, quote, contagious diseases.
Order the removal.
Oh, legit COVID camps. That's what it. Yeah. A bill introduced by a member of the New York State Assembly would amend a public health law permitting the governor of the state to order the removal and or detention of persons deemed to be, quote, suspected case, contact, or carrier of a contagious disease who would pose an immediate or significant threat to the public health. The person in question would then be, quote, detained in a medical facility or other appropriate facility or premise designed by the governor.
Do you know how many dystopian novels this features in?
Yeah. Yeah, you don't have any liberty. You're just a fucking serf.
I mean, especially with the disease thing, like think about all your favorite dystopian future stuff and think about how many times are there like this cordoned off area where all of these people with some plague or some disease are forced to live in poverty and squalor. This is like a hallmark of dystopian future.
Yeah. My son was telling me about the.
Wasn't there like an entire war fought over this sort of thing?
Over camps to cordon off people who might be dangerous to society? There might have been. Gosh.
The U.S. did that before, didn't they? With like
people
of a particular heritage who just might happen to be dangerous.
Fun fact: two types of heritages.
Two types of heritage, yes.
Two types of heritages. Yeah, it wasn't just Japanese. it was also Germans, and the Germans were actually first. They got quarantined, and actually there was a camp just outside of Fort McCoy here in Wisconsin, about 45 minutes away from me. There was, in fact, a camp that was originally for German Americans suspected, and not even just German Americans. Here's the kicker, not even just German Americans, but anyone who had ever been a member of the American National Socialist Party were at a risk of being thrown into this camp. And it had barbed wire and tall fences and armed guards, guard towers. They lived in these big bungalow things, and gosh, that sounds really familiar. Like maybe somebody else might have done that too.
But it's for the betterment of the people.
Yeah, it's in the interest of the public good, for the American nation, the American people. It's about Americans first, and we're going to make America great again. Oh, sorry, I got off track.
Yeah, and just suspected cases, suspected. I mean, that's enough. That's enough to get you tossed in there.
Yeah.
I expect nothing less from Cuomo. Yeah. You sneezed a little bit one too many times in line at the grocery store, young man. It's time to take you away.
And can I just say how horrified we all get right now? Like, we all have this knee-jerk reaction where if we have to sneeze in public, we always feel the need to justify the sneeze to strangers.
Yeah.
Like, no, I don't have the Rona. It's just allergies, I promise.
The guy that submitted the bill.
Oof.
Just putting that out there. Don't have to say
Stockholm syndrome is real. Stockholm syndrome is real.
Don't have to say it. I'm just putting that out there.
Yeah, it's not wrong when we're doing it.
Yeah, and if you were listening to the audio only version, you may have missed that.
The link to this article is in the description. The guy's name is in there. You can look him up yourself, and you'll understand.
You will understand exactly what we're saying.
Yeah. Okay. Here. This is from the bill. From the bill, the provisions of this section shall be utilized in the event that the governor declares a state of health emergency due to an epidemic of any communicable disease.
Any. So wow, those AIDS rates are awful high. I guess anybody who shows any symptom of sickness or maybe might possibly be homosexual, considering that regardless of what people want to say, it's a medical reality. If you're homosexual, you stand a far greater chance of getting HIV. Like, plain and simple, it's just a reality. And because that's a reality, this should really horrify you. Because, you're gay, guess we're going to throw you in a camp. Oh, hey, you know what? And people with compromised immune systems stand a higher chance of getting communicable diseases. So, like, if you have birth defects like Down syndrome or Klinefelter's, you already stand a higher chance of getting a communicable disease. So I guess we're going to have to throw you into a camp now to be sure, because it's a public health emergency.
Yeah. Okay. The bill also says, quote, notwithstanding the foregoing provisions, in no event shall any person be detained for more than 60 days without a court order authorizing such detention. The governor or his or her delegee should seek further court review of such detention within 90 days following the initial court order authorizing detention, or thereafter within 90 days of each subsequent court review.
Wait. That math doesn't add up. So it won't go over 60 days without a court order, but you have 90 days to get a new court order.
Yes.
So
I've just pictured some guy just kangaroo court rubber stamping.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, as we all know, that would never happen.
That would never happen in New York.
Everyone will receive a very thorough review of their individual case and their symptoms and a very fair and honest judgment going forward.
Yeah,
there
would ever.
Shenanigans. None whatsoever.
Yeah, not in a million years could that ever possibly be abused, especially if these detention centers are privately run, maybe.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Yeah. It's just, government has a solution for every problem, and here's their solution, and it's not at all
Well,
terrible and
we
horrible.
should we
It's
should all be grateful because these people are just doing their job.
At least they're just doing their jobs and not actually engaging in tyranny.
Yeah,
or oppression.
It's totally not fascism when you're just doing your job, right?
yeah, not even close.
If history has taught us anything, that is definitely the case, is that just doing your job is absolutely justification. As long as you're following orders. I mean,
That's right. That's right. It's not fascism when democratic socialists do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
that's the important part.
it's completely it's everyone's just completely they're really their heroes, when you think about it, just having to ignore their conscience and their morality and all that stuff and doing what needs to be done. These fucking wonderful.
That's what it really comes down to is moral agency and conscience, right? They really hold people back when it comes to the national health, right? I mean, like that's what it is. That's democracy. We have to protect democracy.
I mean, it's and there is definitely at least one movie that I've seen where there is a line where somebody says something about how I can't. Maybe it was a TV show where I can't afford morality when I have to worry about safety.
Yeah. All right.
There's at least one film that exists in, probably several. Like you want the truth, you can't handle the truth.
Yeah, that's what it is. You want me up on that wall.
Yeah, you need me up on that wall.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And that's, I mean, and we laugh, but that's the reality. That's the mentality of these people. I mean, I know certainly when I was in, that was my mentality is, well, you may not like what I have to do, but I'm doing it for you, so you need to just suck it up. I'm doing it so you don't have.
That's what, like, 2065, our kids and our grandkids will be sitting around and they'll watch a movie called Cuomo's List, and it will win a whole bunch of awards that year.
It'll all be shot in black and white, except like one green balloon.
Except for the blue hospital face mask. Everything else will be
it'll be
that'll be it.
So, all right. On that note, we're already on the list. It's too late. I was gonna make a joke about before we get put on the government list.
Yeah, we've been there for a minute, so
yeah. So on that note,
I literally avoid flying, not just because I'm from Wisconsin and upper Midwesterners just avoid flying. We just do. That's why fly when it only takes me 28 hours to drive there.
Yeah.
That's just a Midwestern thing. I don't know what it is, but I've been avoiding flying because I'm pretty sure that I can't.
Yeah.
All right, throw out your links.
I don't have any. I wish I could say I'm a ghost right now, but probably not. But no, I am on Telegram. So C Sullivan, 1974. So that's all I got. I might restart some social media, but if I do, I've got a battery coming in for this other older phone that I have, and I'll probably just run it all off of there, so it's not my primary phone that I'm carrying around with me. Seeing as Instagram's new terms of service, they can access all of your emails and all of your text data if you have the app on your phone, which is a lovely little tech tidbit that they're throwing your way. So yeah, it's fantastic. So, but yeah, just I've actually been enjoying the time not on social media as much. I get a lot more done. So yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
Doing a lot of training now that it's gotten cold.
What's that?
Doing a lot more training now that it's gotten cold.
It's been. I have to watch it because there's snow on the ground and that leaves tire tracks. And some of the places where I go, I don't want to be found at. So I haven't been to the indoor range for a minute. So I'm hoping once the snow melts, I can do a little bit more. But but I'm still waiting for. I got a new holster on the way, and my Glock 19 slide is getting machined right now, so I can throw my Hollow Sun on top of it. So that all should be done in like 3 weeks. So I'm just chomping at the bit to get that entire thing together. So I'm pretty excited. So we'll see how that works out.
The combat doesn't wait for the weather to be nice and there to be no snow. So learning how to cover your tracks is an important part of field tracks.
I know, but I gotta drive there off the railroad tracks, and I don't know if Union Pacific security is really cool with me being back there, and there's kind of a gate, and so once I'm back there, I'm back there. But yeah, that's an excellent point. Yeah, nothing waits. So yep.
Yeah, I don't like training in cold weather and winter and like the other day it was so cold here that I had to run my truck before I drove because my power steering fluid froze.
Yeah, it was really cold here the other day. It was like a high of 52. It was
Andrew, I remember a couple years ago when we had that big cold snap and you had the boiling water outside when it was like -5 or -10, and you threw it up and just gone.
It wasn't even -5 or -10. It was with wind chill -70, 70.
Yeah. I remember that was the year they had to light the railroad track crossings in Chicago on fire to keep them from icing up and icing over. Yeah, I remember that. It was fucking cold.
Yeah. That was so cold that not only did my truck not want to start with a yellow top battery, it didn't want to start. It was so cold. But I couldn't even open the hood to pull the battery and bring it inside to warm it up because the hood was frozen shut and would not open. So
yeah, I've got an Optima in mind too. I couldn't imagine it not starting on that. That's nuts.
It was very, very, very cold. Thankfully, it hasn't been that cold yet this year, but because that was dangerously cold. When it got to that point, that was kind of ridiculous. But the cold that we have gotten was cold enough at one point that I went to like turn my wheel to move because we have alternate side parking, obviously. So I had to move the car to the other side, the truck to the other side. And it was the power steering pump was whining. And I'm like, why is it whining? And I opened it up and I went to pull the dipstick out of the power steering reservoir and it wouldn't come out.
It's just
when I finally got it, It had a little bit of ice at the bottom. And I'm like, oh, it's frozen. Okay, well,
that's why.
Yeah, that's why it's whining. It's not flowing at all because it's solid fucking ice. Yeah. So it gets that cold here, and learning how to adapt to that. I mean, historically, learning from the German army on the Eastern Front. So.
Yeah, I haven't. Yeah, this season I haven't been outside in the cold yet, really hiking or anything. I wanted to do an overnight camping trip, but it's just all the stars have to align perfectly on the weekend to get that done. So, but yeah, I got some gear. I want to get out there and just test out overnight for 24 hours and see what happens.
Yeah, it's definitely on my list.
Die.
It's definitely on my list for Iron Harvest for that to be one of the things we do is training people who are from warm climates in how you survive in cold weather and stuff. But if you want to plug, if you want to get awesome beard stuff and get fantastic, luxurious, soft, wonderful smelling beard like I have, thebeardstruggle.com is the place to go and use code InkedAnarchist15, all run together, InkedAnarchist15. And you can get awesome stuff. They even have stuff for ladies now. They have all sorts of cool stuff. They have lotions if you're that kind of person. They have all sorts of cool stuff. It's fantastic. And by doing it, you support me, which is cool. So you should do that.
Yeah. Also, check out the homie at Poppins Patches. Go get your Ed and Eddie Boogaloo Boys patches. And wear a bunch of gear like all the cool kids are doing.
Yep, Dave got kicked off of Etsy and kicked off of Facebook and
no shit, he got kicked off too. Damn.
Yeah, for all of his Dave Manning for all of his Poppins patches stuff. Kicked off.
I think that the last one was the imposter, right? The Amongst Us ones. He had one that looked like Donald Trump, and it said this election was sus.
Yeah.
Yes, that'll do it. There it was right there.
He's gotten in trouble for that, so you got to kind of Google him and track him down to be able to buy stuff from him.
Poppenspatches.com. It'll also be linked in the description, as well as Road to Autonomy magazine. Dharma is doing big things with that. And check out Derica's book, Learn How to Critically Think for Yourself, and then you can see what we see.
Yep.
On that note, I don't have anything else.
Nope, I'm good.
We'll have to figure out a name for this episode. This is episode 120. And the 3-year anniversary of this podcast is next week. I think it's like the 15th or something like that. So we've been doing this for a long fucking time for some stupid ass reason.
And people still listen to us, which is weird.
Listenership is going up.
I know. What the hell, man?
So anyway, on that note, episode 120. We'll catch you on the next one. Peace.
Boop.